So the fastest way to lose $60,000 in Minneapolis? Buy the wrong flipping home. And the sad truth is that most buyers walk right into these financial nightmares without even knowing it. I'm talking about problems that can hit you with tens of thousands of dollars in surprise repairs. You know, I don't know about you, but I don't want tens of thousands of dollars of actual surprise repairs. That sounds like a nightmare. So today I'm gonna break down these 6 types of homes that you should never buy in Minneapolis, and more importantly, how to spot them before you make the biggest financial mistake of your home buying journey. So let's talk about some old, nasty, crumbling fieldstone and rubble foundations. This is one of the most expensive mistakes you can make, and it's literally hiding beneath your feet. So picture this, you're looking at this cute 1910 home in Longfellow with nice hardwood floors, the sweet crown molding, but what you don't see is the fieldstone foundation is slowly falling apart right underneath your feet, and it's ready to drain your savings fast. These foundations show up in homes built before 1920. You'll see them in Seward, Longfellow, Summit Hill, Powderhorn, and parts of northeast Minneapolis. They're literally actually made of field stones, meaning stones that were taken out of fields, and then mortar that is put in to keep the stones together. And what unfortunately happens is it breaks down during Minneapolis's hard freeze and thaw cycles. So here's what happened. Minnesota's cold winters put pressure on the mortar, the stones shift, the mortar crumbles, and the walls start pushing inward over time. This can damage the entire structure of your home. Now, here's where sellers get a little bit sneaky. They often paint those basement walls white to hide problems. They're covering up that white chalky stuff called efflorescence and hiding cracks. Even high-end waterproofing won't fix structural failures. Don't let anybody tell you that it will, because they're just pulling your leg, or quite frankly, they're lying to you. And here's something to keep in mind. This foundation advice comes even more critical when we talk about basement issues later. So Minnesota is ranked in the top 5 in the country for radon, which makes basement problems even more expensive. So red flags include bowed walls, loose or shifting stones, moisture seepage, musty smells, and cracks wider than a quarter of an inch. Major repairs can run from $20,000 to $60,000 or even more if you need wall rebuilding. Small fixes like painting or patching mortar really only hide the problem. They don't stop the foundation movement. So you'll need a structural engineer's report before you buy, and really this isn't negotiable in my opinion. So minor tuck pointing work costs $4,000 to $8,000 to fix an entire foundation. Adding drain tile and a sump pump helps lower the water pressure on the foundation by getting that water out of the soil, because that's really what's helping to create the cracking on these walls, right? Is the freeze thaw. It constantly is moving that foundation. So I currently own a couple properties actually that have fieldstone foundations, and I don't have any issues with the ones that I own, but that's because I did my due diligence on the front end instead of 5-6 years down the road. So if you find any of these major issues, you want to walk away right away, or you want to get a good enough deal where you're able to fix those issues before you move into the property. So these foundations are working against you every single winter. Smart buyers know that older homes can be great investments, but only when they're sitting on solid ground and a solid foundation. And foundation issues are only the start of what can drain your budget in older Minneapolis homes. But before we continue, if you're navigating Minneapolis's older home market and want someone who knows exactly which foundation reports to trust and which neighborhoods have the best maintained pre-1920s homes, Homes will help buyers avoid these exact pitfalls every day. Our contact info is actually right down in the description below. Right now, let's move from what's under your house to what's actually keeping you warm. So let's talk about aging boilers and radiators. I mean, that's the thing that everybody wants to talk about, right? So some of these boilers and radiators can be 80 to 120 years old. Some Minneapolis homes still run on heating systems so old that they were installed when horses shared the roads with the first Model T cars. And yes, they are still barely hanging on today, in fact. You see, these homes were built between 1900 and 1940, especially in Uptown, Lyndhurst, Tangletown, and parts of St. Paul. Many original boilers were made between the late 1800s and the mid 1900s, which is way past their normal lifespan. Now, here's where the costs really add up. Replacing an old boiler with a modern high-efficiency unit and radiators costs $10,000 to $20,000 or more. Luxury units or full system replacements can even cost more than that, believe it or not. But wait, it gets worse. Old radiators can leak and cause hidden wood rot and mold in the walls or even your floors. You don't know this until really the damage is too bad, right? So these homes often don't have central ductwork. Adding AC usually costs $12,000 to $25,000 for a multi-story home. And here's the tricky part. The corrosion inside those cast iron boilers is really hard to see, and general home inspections usually actually miss this. So keep this cost in mind when we talk about market data later. Homes with boiler problems can sit on the market longer while buyers factor in those replacement costs because they really can be tens of thousands of dollars. So damaged radiators that aren't really operating correctly can really cost you a lot of money in heating loss throughout your entire home. So you'll want to check the boiler's age. Anything older than 30 years will probably need a replacement relatively soon. So always hire a boiler specialist, not just a general inspector. You need a pressure test, a leak test, and a combustion check to make sure that the unit is operating properly. For cooling, mini-split HVAC systems work better than forced air retrofits when there is no ductwork in the home. They cost $3,000 to $6,000 per zone. Plan for $8,000 to $12,000 for a full system replacement. The charm of cast iron radiators is real, but surprise repair bills can crush people who expect modern systems. And when you look closer, you might realize you're taking on a 100-year-old heating puzzle with massive missing pieces, actually. Now, speaking of water problems, there's another issue that affects every home in Minneapolis, no matter how old they are. Let's talk about drainage and grading problems. When people buy a home, they usually focus on the pretty kitchen, the updated bathroom, but in Minneapolis and the surrounding areas, water is actually the silent destroyer that can flood your basement and your budget in a single spring snow melt. This happens across the whole entire region, but it's worse on low lots or older homes when the soil has settled. Think North Minneapolis, Nokomis, Como, and surrounding areas. So here's how it works. Improper grading sends water towards your foundation instead of away from it. This causes water to get inside and push your foundation, and like we talked about earlier. Because really what happens is that water gets along that foundation in the soil and it expands when it freezes. So damage from water can cost between $5,000 to $70,000, especially if you need structural or interior repairs. So missing or small gutters are really common on older Minneapolis homes. Ice dams and poorly drained driveways make water problems even worse. So red flags include soil that slopes towards the house, standing water after rain, missing downspout extensions on those gutters, or soggy or icy areas near the foundation. But the good news is there's a way to fix it. So you can regrade that soil so that you get at least a 6-inch slope in the first 10 feet away from your house. house, and that'll help the water get as far away from the house as possible, which is where you want it. You can add or extend downspouts so water moves that 10 to 15 feet away from the foundation to, again, keep all that water as far away as you possibly can. Also, install new gutters on older homes. Plan to spend somewhere between $1,200 to $4,000 for a mid-sized house to get those gutters on and functioning properly. So here's the bottom line. Water damage in Minneapolis, St. Paul isn't just a question of if, it's when. Smart buyers check drainage first and pretty finishes second. No granite countertop is worth a flooded basement every spring. But if you think water damage is expensive, wait until you hear about what insurance companies think of our next problem here in the Twin Cities. So knob and tube wiring. Insurance companies have a 3-word answer for knob and tube wiring. Find another company. This old electrical system can turn your dream home into something you can't even insure, believe it or not. The wiring is common in houses that were built really before 1930. You'll see it in Powderhorn, Stewart, Whittier, and older parts of St. Paul. So here's why it's dangerous. Knob and tube wiring has no ground, has no safety features, and creates real fire hazard risks, especially when you add modern appliances that create extra draw on that entire system. Remember, in the 1920s, 30s, we didn't have all the electronics that we have today. So we need to make sure that we have an updated electrical system for all of the updated needs that we have in electricity today. Insurance companies are now denying or limiting coverage on homes, even with small amounts of knob and tube wiring. Partial updates where old circuits get tied into new ones are dangerous and really more common than people think. So full rewiring takes a lot of labor. I've actually had to do this on multiple properties that I have flipped, and you're looking at all sorts of repairs from plaster to opening up walls throughout the entire home. So you really can plan on spending somewhere between $15,000 and $25,000 or more for a full electrical replacement of that knob and tube wiring, and it depends on the size of the house and how hard it is to reach everything. And that money is just to replace the electrical stuff. It's not to bring back all the cosmetic things to the way that they were. So it can get very expensive. So always get a full written inspection from a licensed electrician. They need to check the attic and the basement wiring points. So speaking of things that will shock you, wait until you hear about roofs that can collapse under heavy snow. So before you waive contingencies, make sure you can actually get insurance on that dream home. Try to negotiate seller credits when you can. This is a deal breaker for a lot of buyers. To confirm real updates, you need paperwork, actual permits, and sign-offs that those permits have been closed and completed, not just new outlets or a clean-looking circuit breaker panel. So even if homes look updated, they can have mixed wiring systems hiding in the walls and waiting to bite your pocketbook down the road. At the end of the day, this isn't about finding out that your dream home can't be insured at all. Get the electrical check before you fall in love with that house, because love won't pay for a house fire. So let's talk about snow load and roof problems, from ice dams to sagging and especially flat roofs. So with your roof, you need to be really cautious about what time of year you're buying the house. And really, you need to have a visual of the roof and be able to see the condition of the roof. It can't really be covered in snow, right? Because you just don't know what's going on if you can't actually see something. So you gotta be careful at what time of year you get the inspection, or look at permits to see how old the roof actually is on the home. So what you have to keep in mind is this is especially common with older homes, and snow and ice hit those older roofs the hardest. More importantly, when you have that poor attic insulation and homes with complex gables and flat roofs, it even gets worse, especially in homes in Uptown, Whittier, and parts of St. Paul. So roofs built before 1960 really lack modern structural standards and proper insulation, making them more vulnerable to heavy snow accumulation. So you can get sagging, you can get cracked rafters, ice dams, and and even occasionally a risk of collapse. So ice dams push water underneath your shingles. Then you get rotting wood, hidden mold potentially, and ceiling leaks. So flat roofs, which are fairly uncommon, but were used in some 20th century duplexes and fourplexes, they are really prone to leaks and snow load failures in the winter, especially if those roofs haven't been kept up, right? Because it's important to keep that flat roof up and well maintained, and then you won't probably have any of these problems. So here's something most people never think about. Your driveway's direction actually matters a lot. You don't want your driveway facing due north because it turns into a skating rink in the long winter. So what we're talking about is, think about where the face of the house faces. You want the face of the house to face east, to face south, or to face west. If it faces north, those north-facing driveways, you gotta keep incredibly clean, or otherwise they really become a skating rink. So red flags to watch for include sagging, curling shingles, soft spots or obvious repairs, and signs of past ice dams or ceiling stains. So Minnesota attic code requires R49 insulation currently. That's about 16 to 20 inches of fiberglass or cellulose. Make sure the attic has good ventilation with a ridge, soffit, or gable vents. Check for ice and water shield along all eaves during your roof inspection. So you want to make sure if you have a flat or a low slope on a roof that it gets inspected by a qualified roof inspector to make sure that it'll stand up to those harsh Minnesota winters really well. Full roof replacement costs between $12,000 and really $25,000 for older homes, and can go up from there, especially if you have rot or the wrong insulation in your attic. Winter around here doesn't care how beautiful your home looks in the summer. Either your roof is built for Minnesota or Minnesota will rebuild it for you at your expense. Now, let's head back down to the basement where Minnesota's biggest health risks might actually be lurking. So let's talk about some basement problems. Moisture, radon, and the do-it-yourself finishes. So Minnesota holds a record no one wants. We're ranked in the top 5 in the country for radon exposure. And that finished basement you like might be hiding a huge amount of moisture damage behind those pretty walls. So radon is a colorless, odorless, tasteless gas that is found really throughout Minnesota. And the thing with radon is it really is a contributor to lung cancer. And this can be in any home in Minnesota, whether it's new or whether it's old. The good news is there are fairly simple ways that you can actually mitigate the radon in your home. And to get that mitigated, it's going to cost you anywhere from about $1,700 at the lowest to $5,000 at the very, very highest. So it can be found anywhere, and it's really good to get a radon test in your normal traditional home inspection when you're looking to buy a house. The test is pretty inexpensive. It only is going to run you about another $300 on top of your normal home inspection. And again, it can be found in any home, no matter how old or how new of a home you have. So I really advise to get that radon inspection, because then you could potentially negotiate with the home sellers to get a radon mitigation system installed in that perfect dream home of yours. So there's always a chance of both high moisture and radon gas. The average level of radon in Minnesota is more than 3 times higher than the national average. Keep in mind, every home in Minnesota can have some level of mold in it. What you want to have is have your qualified, normal, traditional home inspector kind of give you advice if you should go another step further and actually get a mold test. And ultimately, when they're testing for mold, the best way that they do it is they take an air sample from inside the house, air sample from right outside of the house, and then they compare the two and see if the levels are above what the EPA standards are. Every house, believe it or not, in Minnesota is going to have some level of mold in it no matter what. And that's definitely not dangerous at all, right? If you don't want to have any mold at all in a house, you're really going to need to move to places that don't have a lot of moisture in the air. So you're going to have to go to the desert, basically. But it's just a matter of that mold level is is high enough to actually create a health risk. So common warning signs can include white powder, musty smells, water stains, warped floors, lack of a drain tile system throughout the house, or lack of a sump pump actually in that drain tile system. So a radon system is needed if tests show a higher than a 4.0 picoliter reading. So under Minnesota's Radon Awareness Act, sellers must disclose any known radon test results to buyers, but radon testing isn't mandatory for home sales. A good drain tile system and sealed sump pit are big green flags, like you want those. If they're missing, it could be a huge risk. So the best flooring choices for a basement are going to be tile, sealed concrete, or engineered vinyl. So you want to be careful, or actually, even be a little aware with basements that have fresh paint, new carpet, or DIY wood walls. These often are hiding some of those long-term issues. A beautiful basement in Minnesota can be your favorite room or your most expensive mistake. The difference is knowing what's behind those walls before you sign anything. Now that we've covered all 6 red flags, let's talk about what this means for your wallet in today's real estate market. So this is what's going on in the Minneapolis market right now. And the most important part is why knowing these 6 issues can save you from learning the expensive way. Current data shows median home prices in the low to mid 300,000 for pre-1940 homes with original systems. Fully updated pre-1940 homes average $420,000 to $525,000. Gaps can be even bigger in popular neighborhoods with high-end updates. Homes that need major foundation, roof, or electrical work usually sell at significant discounts compared to similar move-in ready homes. Days on the market tell the whole entire story. Pre-1940 homes with unsolved foundation, electrical, or boiler problems sit longer than the city average. Updated pre-1940 homes with proof of recent systems, structure, wiring, and radon work sell almost in 20 days. So here's the pattern. There's strong demand for updated move-in ready homes. Homes with older systems risk sitting longer on the market and need big discounts or major seller credits. The neighborhoods most affected include South Minneapolis, like Longfellow, Powderhorn, and Nokomis, plus Uptown, Northeast, Minneapolis, Como, Seward, and older parts of St. Paul like Summit Hill, Mac Groveland, and the Hamlin Midway neighborhood. The truth is, Minneapolis has amazing charm and character in its older neighborhoods, but you need to know and be aware of what you're looking at. Many pros can help you. You can hire a foundation repair expert, licensed engineers, electricians who can handle old wiring, boiler and HVAC pros who know vintage homes, roofers who know if that roof is actually going to hold the amount of snow that it needs to, and licensed radon companies. Knowledge is the real moneymaker in this market. While other buyers get hit with surprise repair bills, you'll know what to look for and how to negotiate. The difference between getting a great deal and buying a money pit often comes down to asking the right question before you buy. You just learned it. While other buyers write huge checks for foundation fixes and electrical rewiring, you'll be the one finding great deals on character homes that are actually smart investments. The truth is, knowing these 6 red flags puts you ahead of 90% of the other buyers in this market. And if you want help spotting Minneapolis homes that already passed these major checks, email us at team@hhgus.com right now. We can guide you towards homes with solid systems, safe foundations, and clear radon tests. And if you want to keep building your Minneapolis home buying knowledge, you need to watch our next video about the most underrated suburb in Minneapolis, where you can get brand new homes for $250,000 to multi-million-dollar homes. And as always, we'll see you on the next video and at the next house.